I use Android. I've always used Android. But man, there is something about Apple that kind of pulls you in, even if you're not an Apple user. Nobody in this world would watch a Samsung event or a OnePlus event, but those same people would sit through an Apple event. And it has become a cultural event at this point. And Apple has built it so deliberately that when they come on stage and announce features, you forget to notice that Android had these features for years. And this video is exactly about that. 7 things Apple introduced after Android and introduced it as if they changed the world. The first one has to be simultaneous front and back camera recording. Apple added this with the iPhone 17 series, but you forget to notice that Samsung introduced it 12 years ago. And just think about who benefited from these features to be creators, reviewers, and vloggers. And most of these people just use their iPhone as the camera because of its superior video quality. Even Apple themselves started filming their advertisements and their events using their iPhone, starting from the iPhone 15 Pro, I think. Anyways, it's happy to see Apple finally added it. Coming at number 2, putting app icons anywhere on your home screen. And this was like the most basic thing that Apple refused to add to their iPhones. You know, when we think about it, when we hold the phone like this, the bottom parts are the one which are easier to access and the top is really hard to access. And for 16 years, Apple started working from the top left corner to the bottom. And Android had this feature since 2008. It was so funny watching the Apple executive explaining how they added this feature in iOS 18.
Along the bottom, right above the dock, for easy access, or even off to the side.
At number 3, we have home screen widgets. The ability to add widgets like your battery, your weather, or calendar on your home screen is actually really useful. And Android had widgets since 2009. But we have to give some credit to Apple because they were the ones who designed it beautifully, because Android widgets looked terrible. Because Android was not just limited to one phone, they're on multiple phones made by different manufacturers with their own skin running on Android. Some of them looked great, but most of them are just trash. Fourth is changing your default browser. I checked if this was correct 2 to 3 times because when I read it, I couldn't believe it. Before iOS 14, you could not change your default browser. That means every link you click will automatically redirect to Safari. Android essentially had this from the beginning. The fifth one is a hardware feature, which is dual rear cameras. Android phones like LG and HTC were the ones to implement 2 cameras on the back of your phone. Apple essentially introduced it with the iPhone 7 Plus in 2016. But here also we have to give some credit to Apple because when they built it, it was top notch. Because the portrait mode were the ones which actually give a whole new experience when comparing to Android phones. The next one is USB Type-C. If I'm being honest, in my dream world, every gadget that I use should have Type-C. One cable, every phone, every tablet, basically every gadget should have Type-C. Apple introduced Type-C 7 years after Android manufacturers, and they used Lightning. And when Apple introduced it in iPhone 15 in 2023, here's what the Apple executive said.
USB-C has become a universally accepted standard. So we're bringing USB-C to iPhone 15.
Fun fact, it was European Union who actually forced Apple to do this. So this clearly brings us to the conclusion that Android was the more functional operating system. But if you compare an Android phone and an iPhone in those days, the iPhone felt more refined and more polished. Over time, Android also got better, but the iPhone was the one which just figured out that refinement in the early phase.